Good day, fellow citizens of the verse. In today's video, I wanted to review how to salvage in the Drake Vulture using the new multifunction displays that were released as part of release 3.24.2. Not a ton has changed, but I'll review the basic functionality as well, just in case you're new to the game or haven't touched Salvage gameplay in a while. Salvage is a great way to essentially print credits in the game, but it is a game loop that can feel very grindy at times, and that's part of the reason that I like it so much. When you're salvaging, you're going to produce two different materials. The first is the recycled material composite, and the second is the construction material. One thing to keep in mind is that the recycled material composite, or RMC for short, is currently substantially more valuable than the construction materials. However, the construction materials is far less of a grind to retrieve it from wrecks. When I'm salvaging, the first thing that I always do is I scan the ship to see if it contains any materials or other players, and to get an indication of if the shields are online or offline. As I scan the first ship here, you can see this is one of the major differences between this version and previous releases, as the scan results are now showing up on one of the MFD displays in the Vulture, which is a nice touch. The results are also much easier to read, although I feel the scrolling and clicking is going to get old very quickly when I'm using my sticks. The second tab shows that the shields on this first ship are apparently offline, and the third tab shows that there is one occupant in the ship, an Argo ATLS. Typically, when I'm salvaging, if there are no players in the ship or the immediate area, and the shields are off, I consider it fair game to salvage, since there's not a way to tell if a ship is owned in the current version. As I move closer to the ship, I always do a test blast with my salvaging heads just to make sure that it will work. In this case, you can see that for some reason the game thinks that this ship currently has the shields online, even though the scan clearly said offline, so after a little bit of troubleshooting, I give up and move to the second ship. The second ship happens to be a Zeus CL, which I've actually never had the opportunity to salvage before. Before I start, I again scan the ship to make sure no one is inside of it and the shields are off, but in this case the shields don't seem to report a status. Confused, I move on to a test blast, which seems to work, so I position myself to begin the scrape. When I'm scraping a ship, I always position myself facing the side of the ship, and tend to scrape back and forth in horizontal motions, as I've found this is the fastest way to get the most material from the ship. Just a note while we scrape the ship here about the on-screen display, since those can be confusing when you first get into salvaging. So starting at the top of the screen, we have the status of the job at hand. You can see in the top row that both my right and left scraping heads are active currently, and the other two buttons, Fracture and Disintegrate, are not currently active. Moving down another row, you can see how much material is left on this panel, the total weight of the item being salvaged, and that the shields on the target are currently off. Moving towards the edges of my screen, you can see I currently have the scraper modules enabled, and I could change those by right-clicking to activate the second set of heads. Moving down the screen, we see the target of what I'm currently scraping on both sides of the center, which shows the distance from the item, the density of the material, and the fill rate that is currently being scraped. Down to the lower right of the on-screen display, I can see how full my filler station is, along with some other standard non-salvage related information. At this point, I'll speed up the rest of the scraping process to keep the video shorter in length. It does take a while to scrape the hull of a ship typically, and depending on the size of the ship, it can result in several trips back to the salvage hold to clear the printer of SCU and move them into the cargo bay. In this case, however, my filler station never gets full, so I skip that step. Once the ship is fully scraped, including the bottom of the ship if it happens to be floating in space, you can proceed onto the fracture mode by pressing left Alt and the W key on the keyboard. Once we're in fracture mode, press the mouse button to start the fracturing process. As you can see here, the ship slowly starts to fracture, and once this bar reaches complete, the ship will break into pieces. Once the ship is fully fractured, we switch to the disintegration mode by pressing the right mouse button. You can see here that as I point at the first piece, we can tell that it's going to consume just under 13 SEU of space. However, my filler station does not have that much left before it's full. One option at this point is to move to the cargo area of the ship and empty the filler station to free up more space and maximize my profit, but for the sake of the video, I'm just going to let the rest go to waste. I quickly fill the rest of the space in my filler station and head to one of the main planets to sell my spoils. Once you're at the main space station, you need to print your boxes and put them into the cargo hold of the spaceport so that you can sell them. There's a couple of ways to do this, and honestly in this case I could have parked a little bit better, which would have allowed me to pull them directly from the ship onto the cargo area, but the grind is half the fun in this game. Once we've got all of the cargo loaded onto the cargo elevator at the spaceport, down it goes, and we head off to the TDD building. Once we're at the TDD building, the location of which differs in each city just to keep things interesting, we approach the commodity trading console, select the city you're in from the drop-down on the top left, then select to sell the max number of SEU boxes for the RMC that you have. The number you get will differ based on what you salvaged, but it's still a good way to make credits even with smaller ships. In this case, you can see that I've earned just over 76,000 credits from the one ship. Once we're done selling at the TDD building, it's off to the admin building. Depending on the city, these can be located beside the TDD building, but in Lorville, you need to take the transit to the main shopping area stop. At the admin building, you approach the commodities terminal again, but this time you can see that I can sell the construction materials, which again follows the same process as the RMC. In this case, you can see that I make a quick 9,000 credits. And there you have it. In just over half an hour, I've made 85,000 AUEC, and I'm back on my way home. Now, you can absolutely make a lot more money than salvaging, but in this case, I was trying to show what I was doing instead of going for top dollar. As I'm on my way home, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's made it this far in my video. And if you enjoyed what you saw, please like and subscribe, as I plan to do similar content in the near future you may enjoy, and it helps the channel out. Until next time.